Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds. Here, myself, Matt, and my co-host Tyler
Hello.
provide our completely unprofessional, 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. Today, we're back with the new movies. We're doing our catch-up, 2023 catch-up, in which for the next couple of weeks we'll be doing videos on recent releases. They won't be as in-depth as our modern classic series, but we'll be talking about the movies that we've seen recently. And today we are covering two movies that came out in December, that being May, December, and Leave the World Behind. Starting off with Leave the World Behind, written and directed by Sam Esmail, starring Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, that guy whose name is escaping me, Mahershala Ali, and the girl with one name, who I
There's a
actually
girl.
can't think of.
There's a girl with one name in this movie.
The Mahershala Ali's daughter, the actress's name,
She's
as
only she
it's
only has she's not
it's
she's
like a
like
one
a
name.
she's like
It's like
Zendaya.
Zendaya, but
Okay.
not Zendaya.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Zendaya would have been probably better.
But Leave the
But
World Behind is a potentially apocalyptic movie. It's really hard to talk about this movie without going into spoilers, so just be warned for both
yeah.
movies. We're going to be talking spoilers for both. But what's really interesting about this movie is that it's written and directed by Sam Esmail, who made Mr. Robot, one of my favorite TV shows, and a show that I recently rewatched throughout the course of like fall and winter. I have 2 episodes left of season 4, and then I'll be done with my full rewatch. Mr. Robot is one of my favorite TV shows ever, especially on a rewatch. I realized I loved it on my initial viewing, but on a rewatch, especially, I noticed, especially from season 1 on, everything has relevance. Like there are quotes and foreshadowing season 1 that doesn't pay off till season 4. And to me, Sam Esmail stands as one of the best writer directors working today. And especially when watching the show in order, not taking the breaks for like the years it takes to make each season, you notice him getting better as a filmmaker and as a writer with every subsequent season. Like season 1, he's kind of like the meme of his directing, and of the show is like everything's directed like this, where it's like kind of in the corner. And it's done for like a reason, like it has thematic reasoning, but as the show goes on, he kind of goes away from that style. And by season 4, he has like completely different types of styles going on. And he just is a guy who really thinks about everything like in a scene. Like he cares about character development. You see what a character wears and you get an idea of who the character is, and like background stuff. It's like Kubrick-esque, in my opinion, the attention to detail like he pays to every aspect of what you see on the screen. And to me, Mr. Robot stands as, and we'll have a timer, like go make an alarm if I start talking too much with Mr. Robot, so I don't get
Okay.
too carried away. But
Okay.
like it's
I got
all
you.
really fresh in my mind because I literally am rewatching it right now.
Yeah.
Um, and just like the social commentary as well. Unlike Succession, it has social commentary and how the rich affect the poor people. It's not a fake soap opera melodrama that happens to be well acted. It's a show that has something to say, and it raises an interesting question of, there's like 45 episodes of the show, and he directed 38, and he wrote all of them. Like, why is this not considered to be like a 40 plus hour long movie when like the whole crew is working on this one thing for multiple years? It's like kind of an interesting question to like, why is this not like the best like opus of the 2010s, because it's the longest. Like
Yeah.
it's this one guy's vision for 40 plus hours made over the course of multiple years. And just to be able to see this show be paid off in such a satisfying way, because I love a lot of shows that got canceled before their times. Mr. Robot was kept alive because I think the USA executives want to know how the show is going to end. So, like, of course, they'll renew it for another season.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to shoot in New York? Whatever.
Yeah.
We'll pay the money.
Yeah.
We
This
want to
show's
know
an
how it
odd. Yeah.
ends.
This show's really odd. Just keep it going, man. You seem really cool.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's my opening spiel on Sam Esmail and why I will not be unbiased
Yeah.
when talking about Leave the World Behind, especially because Leave the World Behind um it takes place in the Mr. Robot universe.
I was gonna
Like
ask
Sam
you that.
Esmail came out and
Yeah.
said that there are Easter eggs to like there's someone has the E Corp laptop. And so going into this movie, I had a ton of expectations because I love Mr. Robot and it's so fresh in my mind. And I do think Sam Esmail, this word is overused, but I do think that he is a creative genius, especially when rewatching the show and realizing how much everything pays off. So going into this movie, I had a ton of high expectations. And for the most part, I wasn't expecting Mr. Robot because I know it's a different format. It's a 2 hour long, 2.5 hour long movie, whereas Mr. Robot is 40 plus hours. That being said, I really like Leave the World Behind. I think this is a solid movie. I want to rewatch it because I think I will appreciate more out of it. But as for Sam Esmail's first movie in a long time, I think it's a solid base hit. I think it's getting a lot of traction. Like I have students who watch this movie
Yeah.
and
It's part of
liked it.
like the Netflix put like we'll talk about our second movie May December, but there's a definite like Netflix push happening between
Yes.
this movie and May December where more people are seeing it when they're not very conventional movies in any capacity. So more
Mm,
interesting people are actually watching it, which I think is really fun.
mm. And so I think this movie, though, does not have too many satisfying payouts. I think that's been a big criticism of it. I think there is a genius to it, with its commentary and what this end of the world potentially could be. Because importantly, Barack Obama is a producer on this movie. Did you
Yeah,
know that?
that was a part of a
Yeah,
controversy
so
I saw.
that's
Yeah.
pretty eyebrow raising. So that leads me to you because I do not know at all how you feel about this movie. Tyler, what do you think about Leave the World Behind?
Yeah, so I actually you watched it. I saw your Letterboxd review, you're like 4 stars. I'm like, that makes sense.
Mm.
Sam Esmail movie, like I knew you're probably gonna lean more towards it. What made me really interested is Olive actually watched it before I did, and she's like, it's great. Like you'll really like it. She's like, it seems
So
like it's up
you
your alley.
value her opinions
I
more
value
than the
both of
guy
yours, but I
who's always ahead of his time on everything, as I proved last episode.
Oppenheimer fucking sucks.
I haven't
I have,
seen it, but I
but
know it sucks.
that fucking hack Nolan making shitty movies, make him Chris 90 minute. Yeah, it's a really good movie. Like I'm just gonna throw this out there. Like I really, really dug it. It's very fascinating. My takeaway for a lot of different things is I wrote a ton of notes on this. Like I was super like it as douchey or as arrogant as this may say. I felt like my like college degree was actually like worth it in some capacity because there's a lot of stuff.
That's a bold statement.
It is a really bold statement. I spent 100 and like God, what was our college? $120,000
Yeah,
for a degree that I don't.
we're both climbing rocks together to
Yes,
make sparks so we can
please.
cook our egg at night.
Or one egg.
Yeah.
Our rations for the week. No, I mean there. This is it's utterly
Tyler
fascinating.
watched this movie through someone else's TV. He was looking through the
Yeah, I
window
was looking over because I don't
because
have
he's
internet. Yeah,
homeless
I'm
because our
just
degrees make us homeless.
I'm just like this little shit. Uh, it's I think I'm more fascinated with maybe like the context with this movie, maybe more than the actual like events of this movie. This is maybe when we talk about like themes or like intentions behind a movie, it's is this the most ironic movie to be put on Netflix and only available on a streaming platform? A movie that almost like inherently criticizes everything that Netflix represents. Um,
So I watched the Real Big Picture Show interview with Sam Esmail
I did not watch this. I
because
was
they're
very
like
curious.
friends in real life.
Are they? Wow,
Yeah,
good for them.
that's why
That's
like
pretty cool.
they didn't do a review of it because
They
like
didn't want to
Sean and
criticise.
Amanda are like friends with this guy.
Okay.
And like when they talk, you can tell they're friends. And he was saying he was comparing this to the COVID-19 pandemic, where it's like COVID hit, and then all everyone cares about is Tiger King, like
Yep.
something like that,
Yeah.
and the general like lack of answers to like or lack of accountability in some regards of like how the disease started, how governments reacted to handling disease, or how or other voices reacted to
Yeah.
riling people up. Um, and it kind of reflects that in a certain regard, where there are a lot of answers, but there's no official answer, there's no accountability. And so I do think it's a really interesting reflection of something that's so new to us as well. Like pandemic started 3.5 years ago, which is
Yeah.
kind of crazy to say. 'Cause it
Yeah. I don't
still
like
feels
thinking
like
about that.
yesterday,
Yeah. I don't
you
like thinking
know?
about that.
So yeah, it feels very modern in that regard.
Yeah. There's something really interesting I was thinking about with this movie is like when because we here at Film Frauds Incorporated, a real big business of
Yeah, we're
tens.
we're E Corp,
We're E
FF
Corp.
Corp.
um, it's pretty interesting that oh my God, a movie like this kind of exists because if when we think about like modern classics, when we think about movies that we're going to look back on and be like, what was representative of the time period that we're in? Movies like this, movies that remind me of like eighth grade, Bo Burnham's eighth grade, that kind of capture like in essence, kind of like a doomerism
Mm.
of like what technology and what the internet and what people are doing. Like eighth grade in Bo Burnham, I thought a lot about that in this movie, where basically like the internet is this outlying, like kind of like horrific thing on our growth, our development, our mental health, our own self-image, our perception. And Sam Esmail seems to be taking a very similar approach, except he's like, we're all incompetent because of technology. We're becoming more like Ethan Hawke has a monologue in this where he's like, I'm a useless man kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there is a clear, like Sam Esmail is thinking like there's a country of political divide, and he is not taking an optimistic perspective on this at all. He is full like we're going to kill ourselves. Like we're gonna gate like it's so easy, we're so divided. And it's very interesting that this type of movie was made, because I think this is something that when we look back in 30 years, we can go, this is a really fascinating picture on what people thought at the time, but it will be lost in a Netflix streaming platform that will invariably cycle it through for the next thing. And it's a movie I
Mm.
expect us in 3 years to be like, hey, remember that movie? Because we can't own it physically, because Netflix, I don't know. And we'll talk about the second movie, but like physical releases for this type of movie, I would have loved to see this in theaters. That was my takeaway, is when I was watching it at home in my TV, my takeaway was like, a lot of my takeaways in this movie were not with the content, but more of just like what it kind of stood for. Where I was like, man, that was a beautiful shot. Would have loved to see that in theaters. Man, I like, this is
Yeah, there's some
really,
incredible spectacle here, and
yeah,
I completely agree. So the team, he very much like he takes the cinematographer and the soundtrack producer from Mr. Robot
does it
to here
really?
as
Okay.
well. Mr. Robot is also beautifully shot. Like season 4, like would be amazing to see on TV because
Yeah.
like whatever cameras he uses, I think are like I'm gonna sound like such a Ismail simp, but I just love like
I mean, we're
it just looks
biased. I
so
mean, like,
beautiful.
yeah, you're
Yeah, it
more
just looks
biased than me in
beautiful.
this. And
Yeah,
I'm admittedly more biased towards these type of movies that seem to be breaking from convention a little bit, but will seem like they're victim of their own creation. I mean, I
yeah,
don't see how this movie, I'm very curious to see how we sit back and remember this movie in 3 years. Like, I was looking back at movies from 2020. Remember Trial of the Chicago Seven? Like, that's a movie that
yes.
was a moderately big thing because it was a major Netflix
Aaron
release. And
Sorkin movie.
I scroll on Netflix now and I don't ever see it. It's
No.
lost completely. I don't know where a movie like this will exist when we think of how movies are defined as modern classics, what shapes, what will age back. A movie that very clearly is taking a very like poignant look at what our current state of technological, political, everything element of our life, and then it will just probably like disappear into the mass quote unquote like content sphere and be lost. And it was like a really weird reckoning with that, with a movie with such a clear message, whether or not we can talk about the effectiveness of the message, the specific elements of it, or the execution of the messages. We can talk about that. But a movie with such a clear message being put on a platform that has in turn kind of started this ideological like breakdown of movies in a sense, like this weird
Yeah.
streaming thing. Really weird
This and the other movie we're
experience.
going to talk about are like both have meta endings. Like where like the
Yeah.
last shot is like really meta.
Yeah.
Um so so I guess like the general plot of the movie is that this family with Julia Roberts, Ethan Hawke, and their two kids go out to like this vacation home that Julia Roberts rents.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful, beautiful vacation
beautiful
home. Yeah.
home. Yeah, it's like has a pool and everything. It's in the middle of the woods because Julia Roberts says she hates people. Like
That's a
that's like her
great
first
opening.
memorable line.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a great opening. It goes, it's slow zoom and she goes, I fucking hate people. Cut to a
yeah.
rap Joey Badass song over opening credits. And you're like, oh,
Who he's an actor in Mr. Robot
is
as
he
well.
really?
Yeah, he
Oh,
plays yeah.
is he one of the people in season 2 at the quote unquote like rehab home?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's because
And
I remember I got that
he's in
far.
the other seasons as well.
Okay, okay.
He's a recurring character. He's great in it as well.
Okay.
So like he's like friends with Sam Esmail. Um
That's actually really funny to know that now that he's friends with Sam Esmail. And
yes.
he put his opening credit.
And basically they go to the home and then when they're on the beach like a giant cruiser boat ship goes like beaches itself for
Yeah.
seemingly no reason.
Great
And then they come
visual.
home and then Mahershala Ali and daughter come to the house saying, we own this house, we rented it to you, but we can't get back to the city because it's blocked off. And so we're wondering if we can stay the night with you guys. And so reluctantly they accept, and then things just get progressively worse as like Tesla cars drive themselves and they block off the city and they slowly start to discover potential facts about it being a cyber terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like
Maybe.
a home front attack.
Yeah.
A lot of it's left nebulous, purposefully so. Another thing I like about this movie is the characters. This isn't like a Roland Emmerich disaster movie. Like the characters, I feel like have flaws. Like especially Julia Roberts' character, who again, her first line is she hates people.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the characters in this movie? Because I think what separates it from like a Roland Emmerich disaster movie or M. Night Shyamalan like mystery box disaster movie is the fact that these characters I feel like are more fleshed out than
Yeah, they're
one
characters.
of these
They're
kinds
actual
of movies.
characters. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's like to say this movie is heavy-handed might be a little bit of an understatement. Its
Mm.
themes, its message, its thing it's trying to convey or wear it on its sleeve. And I don't want to pretend like some of my favorite movie directors don't do that very thing. And I can't pretend not to criticize. Like Spike Lee. I love Spike Lee. I love Spike Lee movies. None of his movies are very subtle. They're all very direct. They look you in the face, they confront you. And I think you're great. And I can't rightfully not criticize that and then not here be like, oh, it's a little heavy-handed. Um, and not criticize that as well. I mean, her character, like, I also like I rewatched Pelican Brief like 2 months ago because I read the John Grisham book, and I was like, I don't know if Julia Roberts is that great of an actress, but she's great, obviously, because like Aaron Brockovich, and she's all great. She's like legitimately excellent in this movie.
Mm.
She's really great. All of the characters and the performances are pretty solid. Um, Ethan Hawke, Mahershala Ali, even the daughter, even the kids, you're all just like, wow. Even fucking Kevin Bacon, who's in this movie for two
Yes.
minutes, is like pretty solid. The characters I liked. I liked that there are certain aspects about them that you can like sink your teeth into. This is a movie that will be kind of like ripe for, and this is also another irony of it, to be picked apart, to be dissected, to be analyzed by like online film culture, to be like, look at these little details, look at these little character interactions. I wrote down a couple details where I'm like, oh, I plan on seeing that on like r/movie details or a movie details Instagram page. The one I saw was they put at the end of the night, they put their phones on top of books. Like little stuff like that. You're like, oh, I plan on seeing that. And that kind of goes for the characters as well. Julia Roberts is untrusting, and there's a little like, at least I'm pretty sure it's never overtly stated, but like subtle like racist undertone
That's the
of
thing
like
is, but is she racist or she just not like people? Like if there's a
that's
white family that
exactly
showed up,
yeah.
were they quote unquote playing the race card to get so they could stay in the house, or did she
Yep.
just misinterpret it? Like Julie Roberts establishes immediately that she doesn't like people.
Yep.
So like if it was a white family that showed up, would she have acted the same way? We don't know. Maybe
We don't know.
she's because then later on she dances with Mahershala Ali and doesn't have any like
Yeah.
issues
Well,
once she
because
kind of
they
like starts
trust
trust.
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was
So
a
yeah, there is
that's
a
a
lot of
yeah.
it's like there's like heavy handed, but also like a lot of gray area as well. It's a really
Yeah.
interesting combination of the two.
Yeah.
Like heavy handed, and it's like we're too dependent on technology, but sort of a little more nuanced and subtle with it's like what exactly is going on and how exactly are these character dynamics
Yeah.
like playing off of each other.
Exactly. And that shows in like Ethan Hawke's character too, who for the most of the movie, you're like, this guy's just incompetent, but he's incredibly trusting of people and he's great with people. A
In
survival
his
skill.
biggest time of need, he steps up to the
He
plate.
steps up.
Yeah,
He knows in that situation with spoiler alert, but at the end of the movie, Mahershala Ali and Kevin Bacon have a tense moment where they're both pointing guns at each other. And Ethan Hawke knows that like a character like Kevin Bacon, a survivalist, just wants to be shown that he's right. You're just
yeah,
like, you're right, you're the man, you're so smart. And he knows this. And you even get like there's this weird little like partial flirting between Ethan Hawke and Mahershala Ali's daughter.
yeah.
But even
Probably the
she's
flirting between Mahershala Ali and Julia Roberts characters.
Exactly. But
Yeah,
like even the daughter is like he wants to like fuck me, but he's not that type of guy. Like he's a good person who has great people skills, who
yeah,
has completely incompetent without technology. And it's this very interesting thing of Sam Esmail seems to be doing where he's like, yeah, like these kind of skills show in weird different areas. And someone like Julia Roberts, who is like wholly untrusting and wholly skeptical, whether that is she doesn't like
yeah.
people and doesn't trust people because of her job, or there is like implicit, I think is the word, racial bias against Mahershala Ali and his daughter, because there's that implication where she's like, how can these people own this
Yes.
home? And you're like,
Yeah,
yeah, a little
that
bit
was the
because
remark. Yeah.
yeah, where you're like, oh, okay, it's and I liked it like a lot. Like my issues with the movie uh come more with like the initial, I think, like character 30 minutes. I was actually not on board for like the first 30 minutes of this movie.
There's
Uh
something like it was really awkward scene where like when they're showing off the house and it's like blasting this music.
yeah.
It was like an ad
Yeah,
for
it's a
something. It
little
was
it takes the time. The movie I like this movie. I want to clarify. It
yeah.
takes a little bit of time to get going. It's built on a little like I so this is my and this is what I was talking about with Olive with this, and she had the same argument. She's like, was Julie Roberts racist or was she just not like people? And she like it's very clear. She we were talking about that and she had good points with that. But I was kind of arguing like at one point, like, oh, I didn't like how the initial interaction between Mahershala Ali and Julia Roberts, where he like couldn't convey that this is his house, and it was like deliberately a little like building tension for the audience, but also like could that just be argued that is a point trying to be made by Sam Esmail, like these people can't interact, but they
That's the
can
thing we
interact
said, well, if
online.
this was like 20 years ago, we would have met in person first,
Exactly.
you
But
know?
is it a point or is it just bad writing? And it rides that line where
Well, I
I think,
mean, I've gone to hostels where I have communicated with the owner through email alone, and
yeah,
I literally have no idea who this person is.
yeah,
So I didn't take that as being unrealistic because I've been in that situation
you
before
have it. Yeah,
where the end of the world's happened while I'm at a hostel, and then they come to my door and they're like, I've never met you before.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's so I don't know. It to me at least from a
I like how you didn't laugh at all.
I've just oh I didn't know you were like the end of the world at the hostel, and I was like that'd be pretty crazy if you were at a hostel.
Yeah, no, I have been in situations where you just communicate through email or like
Yeah,
messenger, and then they're like, okay, the keys on the thing.
yeah. Come
Like,
on, your
oh,
jokes have to be better for me to laugh. I have you hold you in such a high standard for humor at this point that you really got to start swinging
mm.
bombs for me to be like really catch me. Yeah. No, I mean, what did you think? Like, I'm in on the characters, and but it does ride that line a lot with a lot of their interactions, with a lot of how they navigate situations between is this meant to be purposeful? Are we meant to like kind of read into everything that they're doing, or is it just kind of bad writing at times? And I
I'd say
think
the
that
bad
might be
writing comes more with like there's a couple just like really stupid lines that people say. I didn't find any of the tension building to be contrived, to be that contrived.
yeah, it was
But I
actually
feel like
pretty
there was
solid.
like awkward, like there were like awkward phrases and stuff every once in a while
Yeah.
that you're like, okay, like I understand the M. Night Shyamalan comparisons.
Yeah, I saw that too.
But as for like the actual like building of tension, I never felt like anything was too particularly forced.
Yeah. My whole takeaway a lot with this movie is that it's a movie with really confounding lows and absolutely insane peaks.
What's like the lowest? What are the lows for you?
Like anything with the kids. Like
Oh, as someone who doesn't like kids in movies, I thought they were like appropriately unlikable.
I think they were purposely unlikable. I just thought they were incredibly uninteresting in comparison. I thought there was
I think that's
really
the point though, because the girl's sole motivation is to just to watch the finale of Friends, and
do,
that's like funny to me.
do you like that scene? And we can talk about more of this where, and again, I think this is so on the nose in what Sam Esmail's doing, where she gives that parable about like the man trying to be saved by God, but she
Mm,
attributes it. I'm like, I never did any research for this. I didn't look it up. This is my argument, is that I think that's a parable that came out before the West Wing. It's like a parable. And she
yeah.
attributes it. She's like, do you remember that parable from West Wing, like the Aaron Sorkin years? The fact that she attributes this like piece of like not like ancient writing. Let's just for argument's sake, like actual like more like classic tale, classic parable to a more modern piece of like television. I thought was interesting. I don't know. I think my lows also were just like the pacing.
Like the son's a dud, like who
The
just
Sons
is
of
like
Dut, yeah,
creeping on Marshall Lee's daughter. Like I don't know.
yeah,
I thought Marshall Lee's daughter is like this like elitist daughter of a like a high ranking
yeah,
U.S. government agent. I don't know.
or
All
whatever
that
they
stuff.
are. Yeah,
Yeah, whatever Marshall Lee does, again, it's purposely left vague, and I'm kind of okay with that.
yeah,
But I don't know. The kids, I thought they were well written for the some of their dialogue wasn't good, but
yeah,
I thought general motivations and like dullness of each one of them, I
yeah,
thought was like appropriate. When she's like, I just don't want to like set myself up to anything yet,
yeah.
like things like that. It's like, oh, because you have the money
I'm not
to
talking
have the
about
freedom.
I'm not. I like Mahershala Ali's daughter. I understand that. For me, it was more like the two young kids because the two young kids, I think, were less characters and more of like trying to say something in some capacity or being
Okay,
vehicles for like the message of the movie or like you said like the more nebulous nature of it with the sun and the teeth, like while the other characters in the movie when they were on screen I think were characters and people. And I mean in terms of like peaks, that shot of the plane coming in is where
yes,
you're like like because I mean Sam
that's
Esmail,
like the movie shot. Like that's
yeah,
like what you want to see in the theater.
I mean, Sam Esmail, when you talked about this, when you talked about the framing of his shots, but he knows where audience eyes naturally drawn it's toward the center of the screen. So
Yeah.
you're when that blue shot comes on your center screen, and there's if you look at the planes coming in on the right, and it only
Oh,
once it comes in a little bit more, at least is what I was, because I went and rewound it a few times and like, and then it comes in, and you're like, holy fuck. And then the plane comes down, and that like the master of like setting up a shot like that, of establishing it, of building it, of like creating and framing how this works. My man is a fucking great director. Great director.
Yes.
Absolutely great.
Mm. Um, I agree. How do you think this movie will fare on a rewatch for you?
Probably better.
You
Probably
think
a little
better?
better
Okay.
because what little stuff did you get from it? Because I had like one thing that I thought the movie was like this like socioeconomic commentary it was pushing a little bit, which I literally I wrote it down. I was like frantically while the movie was happening, I was like writing down my notes and being like, oh,
I
I
just love
totally
Kevin Bacon's line of like America's made a lot of enemies.
yeah
And you're
yeah
like, yes.
yeah it has it
So
could be
like
anyone
yes, and like the idea that it could be like the government experimenting like on itself, like in like a town or like a smaller city or
yeah
something, just to see how this weapon works.
yeah
Um, like his theories, even though he's a little bit of an archetype for like a MAGA guy,
yeah
um, he's like a MAGA guy who did kind of like he seemed appropriately written and
yeah
also like not completely like there to be made fun of.
yeah
He did have good points, and he, ultimately, the end, he had more humanity than Mahershala Ali did because Mahershala Ali decides he wants to just go to a bunker without their family.
no I think they like they
What
got
do
a
you think
good
he got? You got that he wanted to go back to the house to pick them up?
yeah I mean I don't
Because
see why
I interpret it as like we need to go right now.
really oh no
That's how I interpreted it.
I kind of like that the movie ends with like a like they're so close to the I mean they almost get to the day I mean at the end of the movie Julia Roberts and Mahershala Ali's daughter see New York City being bombed and but then
Yeah,
they pan out and they're like right here and the house is right there like they'll get it's not very far away they're close to tracking the daughter they just get distracted by seeing us New York City be
yeah.
fucking I thought it was a nuke at first but it just looked like a really big bomb um yeah I don't know I like what it like did you get any like small things
The only
like as a
disappointing thing
commentary
I would say is like the cabin outside of the house
it makes
with
yeah
the
it's
bed.
weird yeah
Yeah, it just
it's
didn't make any sense.
yeah where
Maybe
he's like
I'll connect dots later,
yeah
but
where he's like what's he's like it like you look and be like oh there is an impression in the leaves and you're like
yeah,
what is that it's a movie with a lot of I think I saw someone say like a lot of puzzle pieces that don't fit I would argue it's a movie with a lot of puzzle pieces that like some fit and some purposely
yeah.
left that but
It's a movie that CinemaSins would have like a field day picking apart without actually understanding any of the nuances of what it's going for.
yeah
But there are some objective plot holes, but there are some things that are purposely left vague because they actually have meaning and reflection of our own society.
yeah the
Um,
fact that like the pamphlets of Death to America in a like what an American would view as like a
it's like in
stereotypical.
Arabic and in Mandarin.
Yeah, it's
So
like that. But then he
yeah,
also says like, "Oh, it was in San Diego and it was in Mandarin," and you're like, "Oh, there's furthering divides. They're they're get rid of communication." You're like, "There's enough there." I kind of dug. There is this like mild socioeconomic, not maybe not even mild. Everything's on the nose. Like commentary about how like Mahershala Ali is like the billionaires got a heads up that it's happening, so they got like a 1 day heads up. And I thought it was pretty
yeah,
interesting that Mahershala Ali's family is very clearly like they're millionaires. They're very wealthy. They're like they have a house, they have a place in New York. They deal with billionaire clients. Their house and the fact that like the millionaires can somewhat like stave off like a disaster for a little bit before it does ultimately impact like before it does ultimately like impact them eventually like they go through multiple nights of they can just sleep at night
yeah.
there's like
Right.
New York
They're
City's
just
being
drinking a lot.
yeah New York City is being destroyed people are
Yeah.
dying but they can just kind of stay but then eventually it impacts them or you have Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke's characters who are I'm going to say wealthy I mean their apartment is nice in New York City and they can
Yes.
get away and rent a house they can somewhat escape they can somewhat get away. They can hold it off for a little bit, but then it impacts. It affects their son. Their daughter runs away. And then finally you get like the poor working class when you see the like Hispanic women who cannot communicate, who needs
Yes.
help, and who gets completely
Who like
ignored.
walked like a whole day to get
Ye-
to this.
Yeah, and like we don't know
Yeah.
where she is. She wants and like I was like, oh, that's pretty like I like that. Like I like that you will be able to go back and probably get other little things about this on subsequent rewatches.
Yeah. Would you recommend this movie to
I
people?
would. Yeah. I'm very
Okay.
curious. Do you know what this movie has for a rating on Letterboxd right now?
It's like a 2.6 or something,
It has a 3 it
2.7.
has a 3.0. It's like dead in the
Oh,
middle
okay.
or not dead in the middle, but
It's like a C.
what do you think of people's reception to this real quick? Like what's your perception on what people are going to think about this movie based on like our internet understanding, our world
I think people are gonna
understanding?
be like, that ending sucked. Like I think that's like the general consensus that I don't know. I mean, so I talked to one of my students and she liked the movie a lot. And she's not like a film person. She just liked it. I think it's gonna be a movie that, again, I think like the IMSs and the sins of the world are just gonna be like, why did this happen? Why did that happen? It doesn't make any sense. And it's like you're like not attempting to engage in this at all.
Mhm.
I'm sure Critical Drinker is gonna blame the libs for this movie or
Because they have
something.
one line about you can't trust white people, even though it's been
Yeah.
explicitly stated.
What he said.
Yeah, it's Barack Obama produced it, so therefore
Uh,
fuck the libs. But then the fact that like forgetting that that is a point on both sides of the movie they're trying to make, that there is like
Yeah.
a little bit of like racial commentary happening in the movie. It's pretty
Someone did. I
heavy.
did see an IMDb review where someone's like, the racist part seemed necessary. It's like it's such a small part, and it's
Yeah,
purposefully left vague.
yeah.
Like, just grow up. Um, so yeah, I would recommend it. I don't know. I think it's a movie that, because it got like some like pretty good Netflix hype, that it's gonna attract opinions from like all over.
Yeah.
So like Killers of the Flower Moon is typically gonna attract like film bros like us, whereas this movie is gonna attract a larger audience.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna get a more like unbiased, or not more unbiased, but like a larger pool of thoughts and backgrounds of people reacting to it. So I think like a 3 is like pretty good.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just happy people are watching a movie like this. I'm very curious to see what Sam Esmail
I'm
makes
happy
next,
Sam
though.
Esmail, like, this is, I mean, he'll probably have free reign. He said he liked working with Netflix because he had no like creative compromises. They just let him do
Really?
whatever he wanted. Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. Like, that's the thing is like Netflix clearly is allowing directors their vision, but in
Yeah.
turn, their own vehicle is like curbing the long term like culture or like
Would you
standing.
would you feel this way if they released physical media for the movies that came out afterwards?
I'd feel it, but less. The fact that
Okay.
I don't know if I'll ever be able to own this movie, like the fact that Netflix could, in theory, disappear tomorrow and
Yeah.
I could never see this movie again is a really weird and sobering thought considering the content of the movie, with the fact that the last shot of this movie invariably champions physical media. Like in some
Yeah.
capacity, it's like, wow, the world ends, but you could still watch that last episode of fucking Friends.
Yep.
I mean, the last shot of the movie is literally the camera like it holds on walls of movies in like collections of it's really really fascinating.
Sam Esmail, in an interview with Big Picture Show, said he wanted, like, it said that he wanted their friend score to be unnerving at the end.
Yeah. It's
Like, and I
off-putting.
thought it worked. It was like
Yeah.
dan, 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 and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah, you're like, get
the
it
world's
out.
falling apart, and
Yeah.
this person just wants to listen, just wants to,
Wants to watch Friends.
yeah. Like,
Um,
and it's like saying, I'll be there for you. Like, when everything is bad, you'll still be able to have your mindless entertainment.
yep. That's I mean, it's so yeah, I'll be there for you. You're like, okay, I get it. This is great.
Yeah, I laughed at the end,
Yeah.
like in a good way. That's like a mic drop, and
Yeah,
I was so
yeah.
happy with
You're like,
that.
oh, Sam Esmail.
Yeah,
How does he come across real quick in interviews? Is he
he comes off good, I would
good?
say.
Okay.
He comes off like a human being.
That's what how old is he, by the
Yeah.
way? Do you know?
He's in his like mid 40s, I
Mid
think.
40s. Okay, so we
Yeah, mid
got
to late 40s. Um, so he still has a ton of great decades ahead of him to be making stuff.
yeah,
So be looking forward to that. But yeah, he's very politically minded.
yeah.
But also at the same time, I like listening to him in interviews. He said when, like, he has like a writing class or like a video on YouTube about like how I wrote Mr. Robot. He says whenever he's writing a script, he writes like the most cliche dialogue as possible just
Yeah.
to get the first chapter over with. He's like, I'm mad at you because of this.
Okay.
And I'm like, things like that just to
Yeah.
get the first chapter done. And like I love listening to him talk about like his creative process.
See, that's fucking sick. And you know what sucks is I'm even just thinking about the mild controversy that conservatives had with that line. Isn't that the point of the character? She's meant to be representative of like a 2023 like Gen Z
Yeah.
politically minded person
Mm,
who isn't like very well like it's
yeah.
pretty like very
And ultimately
privileged.
they unite at the end. So it's
They
not like it's a
yeah,
movie saying white people are bad. Like, he ultimately saves her, or like
yeah,
stands up for her in front of the deer
yeah.
and everything.
It's like literally it's like when push comes to shove, like they form a connection. Like that's the point of man, media literacy is fucking like down the
Yeah.
drain, isn't it? Holy shit. This is we recommend this movie. It's a good
Yeah.
movie. We didn't even talk much about like
Yes.
the visual directing. There's this beautiful shot of the camera like twirling in a circle as Julie Robert goes up the stairs. I thought was like,
Yeah.
wow. That was one of my like, man, I wish I would have seen this in theaters. And the plane sequence. Big up. Good job.
Hmm.
Great movie.
Do you want to intro the next one?
Yeah.
All right.
So our next movie is another one, which actually surprisingly makes for
Our
pretty
next
good
movie
pairing.
is another movie.
Is another movie. Could you believe that? We're talking about another one that actually makes a like rather oddly good pairing with Leave the World Behind. And that is 2023's Todd Haynes is directed May December.
So, not to derail you completely, but I'm on the Wikipedia page for May December,
Yeah.
and it says its budget was 20 million and its box office 234,000.
I mean, it was in some theaters though. It was
Yeah, okay. I
yeah.
was like, I just kind of, I imagine Netflix made up, like, this is crazy. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just thought it was funny. Okay,
I
I
mean, May
apologize.
December played in a couple smaller theaters around where I am, but and I never got a
Oh,
chance to see it.
mhm.
So I mean, that's one of those things of like, man, I would have loved to see this in theaters, and I had a choice, and then I just was a little bitch, and I didn't see it.
Mm.
May December, directed by Todd Haynes. It is stars Julianne Moore, Natalie Portman, and Charles Melton of Riverdale,
Yep.
a newer actor. Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore are well established, well credible actors, and it is based on the real life story of I do not know the names. We do not prepare probably as much as possible. Of
It's
this
like Teresa something.
yeah, it's this incident where a mid-30s woman had an affair with basically like a child. And they continued their affair past the child adult.
Oh, Mary Kay Letourneau. Letourneau.
Yep. Uh
Yep.
there is I did last time after finishing the first one, there was an interview with the real life people this was based off of where the dialogue is almost lifted in an interaction that the characters, Joe, who plays the young boy who was groomed, and we could talk about that, and Gracie, who's played by Julianne Moore.
Really? There's an actual interview with these people?
So this is a spoiler. Spoilers for May December. It's been out for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
You guys will live with it. Do you know the interaction at the end of the movie where Joe is like finally confronting Gracie, and
Yeah.
he's like, maybe I was too young, and she's like, you were in charge. That is lifted off a real life TV interview that she has,
Oh.
where the interview where she's like, I don't care. He was in charge. And the interviewer's like, you do realize this, how crazy this sounds, right? And she's like, no, I'm not. He was in charge. And you're like, what the fuck? You're like completely delusional. I actually watched this for the second time in preparation for this.
Oh.
Yeah, because
So can you talk through, because you were not as crazy about the movie in your first viewing, so I want to know, like,
yeah.
talk me through it.
Okay, so
So I don't know how you feel about on a rewatch.
the first time I watched this,
Yeah.
I want to put a preface. I'm currently staying in an Airbnb in Los Angeles. I will not give you my location for the tens of people listening to this. Um, I put it on, and about an hour into it, I heard the little of raccoons
What
awaking.
sound did they make? Okay.
Yeah. If you don't believe me, I can Google raccoon sounds. They have found their way into my ceiling, which my ceiling is right there and it's pretty thin. You could hear them moving. So I paused it, and that started with Olive and I going outside and watching and trying to get four big motherfucking raccoons out of my ceiling. They left, got distracted, tried to deal with that. Then I had to go. We had planned to go rock climbing. So by that point, the raccoon situation had happened, and then it was rock climbing time. And then I came back and finished it. So this movie took me like a long time. I had to basically watch it, pause it for a while, deal with raccoons, climb some rocks, then come back and finish it. And when I finished it the first time, I was like, yo, man, I don't know what the fuck that was. I was really off on it. Like, not even like it's bad, but I was like, I need to sit and think with this. And I waited like a week plus, and
You
it
just
even
watched King Kong versus Godzilla for
yeah,
the third
over and
time,
over
and
again.
you're
Yeah,
like,
that's actually how I really process movies. Is a monkey has to punch a
you
giant
compare
lizard.
them.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I really like that character interaction, but when that Godzilla, man, when he put atomic breath into the center of the earth, whew. But I sat with it, and in my memory, the movie got better and better and better. Specifically, Charles Melton's performance. I watched it again. I'm a lot higher on it now. I do have reservations with it, and it's not because of the specific stuff I think is bad. It's because there is stuff in this movie that's so interesting and so fascinating and compelling and really like magnetic to watch that the other stuff in comparison kind of falls a little flat in comparison. I will explain that in detail in
Okay.
a bit, but there is parts of it where I'm like, this is the best stuff I've seen all year in a movie. And when other characters are on the screen, I am about 25% less impressed by it, if that makes sense.
Okay,
What did you
interesting.
yeah, what did you think about it?
I've only seen it once and I saw it a couple weekends ago.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty sensational.
Okay.
I watched Carol by Todd Haynes in preparation for this movie, and my review of it is that it's a parody of an Oscar movie that doesn't know it's a parody. It feels like it's taken from. You remember the beginning of Tropic Thunder where they do like the parody of the Oscar movies?
Yeah.
There's just so many scenes where it's just like,
Like longing look.
yeah,
But
that's the whole
are
movie.
you in a Todd Haynes movie right now? Is this
Yeah, that's
it?
how I
Okay.
feel. Like it's beautifully directed, don't get me wrong, but if it came out in 1975, maybe it would be groundbreaking for its time, but by 2013 standards, I was bored to tears by it. Thought it
To
was
tears. You were crying, like audibly
yeah,
weeping.
I was crying. I was so
Yeah.
bored. Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara are fantastic actresses. They have zero chemistry, absolutely zero chemistry, and that their script gives them nothing. They're
Mm.
they're told to just look longingly while classical music plays. Um, and it just wasn't good, and I didn't like it. So I was kind of nervous going to this movie. This movie has edge to it. It has grit. It has Todd Haynes' beautiful directing, but like with like substance and like something you can like just get
Yeah.
like,
He's lost.
you know. And I just really enjoyed it. I think it's a really touchy subject matter. I think it handles complex characters and a complex plot really well. And it's almost like objectively directed. It's like there are scenes where I gotta look up the characters' names for a second. I apologize. I
uh
have them
Gracie,
literally right
Joe,
here. Yeah,
Elizabeth.
okay. So where Gracie, the wife, and
Yeah.
Joe are talking, and she's talking to him like a student, and it's disturbing. Like it's like a mixture between a lover and a student, or like and like a mother, a lover, and a student. And it's really disturbing, but it's never shot in like a weird way. It's filmed very like objectively.
Yeah.
And like and that just further like it's adding normalcy to something that's so taboo, and that makes it even more taboo.
Yeah.
It adds more granular reality to it. And at the same time, Natalie Portman's character is like this vapid Hollywood actress who like the actual punchline to her character at the in the last scene like makes the movie even better for me.
Yeah.
But again, it's like she's dealing with two morally well, one character's innocent, the other character is morally reprehensible what she did. But at the same time, she's making everything worse by pointing it out just so she can make a stupid movie, you
Yeah.
know? So it's just such a morally gray movie, and I found it to be so interesting to see how it played out.
Yeah. Even talking about like how you said it was filmed very objectively, there's that scene at the beginning when Gracie and Elizabeth are like potting plants, and
Mm.
it's filmed from an angle that is filmed as if it's a reality television show. Like people are cooking. You know those reality cooking shows on like
Yeah, yeah,
daytime
you're right.
TV
Oh my
where it's
God,
like the
yeah.
camera is like
Yes.
level with the table and it's just like it's very flat. There's stuff in the background, but that's all the dimension. It's filmed like that. And I was like, that's really interesting. What did you so you like you were in on it. You're like, this is
Mm.
how is it aged for you since you really have like sat with it?
It's aged well. I'm not like thinking about it every day,
Yeah.
but I still think about it. I think the guy who plays Joe, um Charles Melton.
Yeah.
Everyone has said it at this point, but it just bears repeating that he should win an Oscar
You should.
for probably best supporting actor.
Yeah.
The physical body language of this big guy being reduced to like a seventh grader at times, where he just has like the solid shoulders and he sits
Yeah.
on the couch and stuff. Um, he balances like the fact that he sort of it's a really weird situation where it's like he has a nice house, his wife loves him, he has a
Yeah.
daughter going to college and he's proud of her.
His kids love
Yes,
him too. Yeah.
but also he was groomed
He was
and it's
yeah.
really messed up.
Yeah.
And at times it comes out, and it's and like the thing like where he like reveals his moments of emotional immaturity, like when him and Natalie Portman sleep with each other, she manipulates him into sleeping with her,
Yeah.
and he's like talking about all these like plans they have for the future, and she's like, "This is just what adults do,
Yeah. This is what
you know,
grown-ups do.
like
Yeah.
this is what grown-ups do." It's so like, and now that I'm talking about it again, I'm getting excited talking about it
Yeah.
because it's so delectable. It's
Yeah.
so delectable,
Delectable.
everything that's going on in this movie.
Yeah.
So what is your 25% bad versus your 75% good?
25% bad. Bad is it it's I so
Or
basic
25% not as good as the great?
I don't want to be hyperbolic when I say this, but I do think Charles Melton gives like the best performance of the year. Like I do think there's a real world where you look at all the actors and actresses in the movies of this year, and you can put Charles Melton in the top like
And there's
three.
no soliloquy scene. His best
There's no
acting is
It's
is physical
physical.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is truly one of those movies where, or one of those performances where the performance has aged very well in my mind from the first time I saw it, and rewatching it, I was just like, holy fuck, this is incredible. Like the way the smaller way he talks, the like you said, like the hunch, the way he doesn't really know how he kind of stands even.
Yeah.
It's just all of it is utterly like transfixing. Uh I know at this point, like I know you don't give a fuck about the Oscars, but it seems like right now the best supporting actor performance is Robert Downey Jr.'s to lose. I will throw
Okay.
it out there. He's incredible in Oppenheimer. He is like, it's like holding a candle to whatever Charles Melton is doing here.
Really?
It's Robert Downey
Okay.
Jr. is probably going to win it. We don't have to be basically like another Oscar movie podcast, but Robert Downey Jr. seems like he has the momentum. Charles Melton, that fucker is so good in this. And so in comparison, I found that everything that has to do with Joe, whether it's Joe's relationship with the Elizabeth or Gracie, or whenever he's on screen, or even the moments when he's with his kids, when it's very clear in the movie, his
Or with his
kids are,
birds.
or his bird, or not his
Yeah.
birds, his moths,
Oh, moths.
his
Yeah.
moths, or that his kids love and care about him. His kids seem to recognize and know, or are battling with the fact that they're like, my dad is not okay. He was very clearly a victim, because you can see whenever they're just with him, they're happy. Like it's this thing. Or whenever Elizabeth talks with someone outside of this house or this family, where they really like, I wrote down the actor who plays Gracie's ex-husband, Tom, is in the scene for 2 minutes
He's
and
great.
kills it. Where he's
Yeah.
like, where the line to earlier, he's like, what compels 36-year-old woman to have an affair with the seven? It's like Todd Haynes is just spelling out like, this is all fucked up, but like this is the reality of it. Everything with that is the most interesting part of the movie to me. Surprisingly for me, everything with Elizabeth or Gracie, I just found a little less interesting in comparison. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa. Oh
It's
my
not
God.
it's not because I think it's not good. It's actually great. It's just less interesting to me. It's
Even
because
just a scene where they're putting on this when they're putting on the makeup. It's so simple, but I found it to be so disturbing. Like that shot is stuck in my head.
it's
Like when
disturbing. It's
yeah.
effective. It's just, I think it's one of those cases of the other stuff is so excellent that
Okay.
I wanted more of that.
Maybe because like I like the more cynical stuff. It's like I kind of like the especially with the punchline at the end of the movie where like all this drama and like bringing up past trauma is all in service of making a crappy movie.
Yeah,
Um
it is pretty funny though. Like, I don't know. I just think of like that scene where Joe visits his dad, and
yeah,
they just can't, like, they're not even like looking at each other. He's
I
like,
know.
it's crazy that the kids are going to college. His dad's like, mm-hmm.
He's
And
having
like,
like such a fun, like a boring conversation because they don't know what to
yeah,
talk
and
about. Yeah.
they cut down, and he's just like, it's like 50 cigarettes. And you're
Yeah.
like, these people cannot, and it's just like how everybody has failed Joe. How everybody, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like the stuff with Julianne Moore and Natalie Portman is like legitimately great. Specifically like how, at least I feel like it's clear that most of it is like deliberate, clear manipulation. Um, on her part, whether or not you believe the stories of her being sexually assaulted or raped by her brothers when you're younger, it's
Yeah.
that kind of trauma. But you get the inclination that like it's a failure on generational gaps, whether it's how Julianne Moore's mother treated her with like getting a scale or criticizing weight, and she does that to her own kids. But it's fascinating to watch, and I think it's a movie that if you rewatch, I think you like it even more, honestly.
Hmm. What is did any scenes stick out to you at all watching this movie? Other than ones we've already talked about. I think the last shot of Julianne Moore, like at the graduation where it's like fading out
Yeah.
from her after she has a conversation where she said like, oh, like my son and I set this up. Like Todd Haynes does these really simple things that make you feel unsettled. Or
Yeah.
like when they're in the pet shop and Natalie Portman's doing what she's doing in the back.
Yeah.
Like this, like weird things like that are so simple, but they just feel so unsettling at the same time.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know how he does it,
I
but
think
and the
it's the
score, the
mellow.
score as
Yeah,
well is great. Yeah,
it's the melodrama, like almost music, like the doo 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 doo
yeah,
kind of thing, where you're like, oh, it's hammy for a reason, like it's purposely like corny, and then the reveal that she's just like some shitty Lifetime actress.
yeah.
That
We gotta talk about the last scene.
yeah, what do you think about that? Because
I
I
love
didn't.
he has that like greaser hairdo, like the guy who's playing Joe.
Yeah,
It's so detached from the reality of the events,
yeah,
and it was like a weird moment of self reflection that I didn't know like Hollywood was capable of, or like these directors were capable of. Because Natalie Portman is super aware of it,
yeah,
like Todd Haynes is super aware of it. Like they're this like completely fake and artificial recreation of like an
yeah,
actual tragedy that ultimately just has nothing to actually do
yeah,
with the events. At first, I was really thrown off by it, but the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, this might be the best. Like this and um Leave the World Behind just have such meta endings that I think are
yeah,
like elevate the movies in retrospect.
yeah. Or the fact that like the way it's filmed is like seductive.
Yeah,
She's like sprayed out in like a shawl with a snake, like
yeah.
trying to be charming when like the reality of it and what I
They
think
were
Todd
like in the
Haynes is very
back of the pet shop
yeah, on
where
like
it's
a
all dark and
couch.
yeah,
Yeah, it's like they're flirting, but like in what they seem to is like this is a not a this is a tragedy.
yeah,
I mean this is like a kid who was sexually assaulted, groomed, it has been failed, but like Hollywood is like, wow, it's kind of look at this sexy and flirtatious element. I mean, Natalie Portman is her character. I forgot how big of a piece of shit she actually is in this movie. On like a first watch, it's kind of like jarring. I mean, she openly is like belittles or like doesn't like her husband,
yeah.
and cheats on her husband, comes into a life like you said and ruins it, and then it's just like, oh, like well, whatever, and
All
then
in service for all in service for a Lifetime movie
yeah.
that no one's gonna remember and that she's bad in.
When did you pick up on your first watch? You're like, what is going on here with her? Like, is there? Do you remember what where it stood out to you?
I don't think it really stood out until like the last shot
The last
where I
shot.
realized how like pointless all this was.
Yeah,
You know, I understood she was a bad character like probably about halfway through, but I understand just how futile this whole thing was until the last shot where you get like them shitting
yeah,
the movie.
yeah. And it's
But
even more impactful with how juxtaposed it is by the scene prior. We get Charles Melton like watching his kids graduate, and he's so happy, but also like
yes,
crying.
yeah,
And then it's just like, and then you get that reality of Julianne Moore. She's like, insecure people are so dangerous. She's like, I'm secure. And it's kind of that confirmation that you've had over the course of the movie where you're like, she's very deliberately manipulating people and knows how
yeah,
to inflict like pain and suffering on these people and
mm,
manipulate. And you're like, oh, these are real people, like with
yeah,
real things. And you can even see like Natalie Portman seems like shocked a little bit. She kind of like doesn't know what to do with like the paper. She's kind of like uncomfortable, like that moment of like grasping at humanity that these are real people with a real fucked up situation. I don't know. What do you think of the scene with Joe and his kid on the roof?
oh,
Where he breaks down and cries in his son's arms.
I think it's sad that the only person he can be emotionally vulnerable to is like the person who is like his kid, who it should be the opposite way. Just goes to show how stunted his development is, you
Yeah.
know? Another example of that. What do you think about it?
I mean, it's so one fucking great casted children.
Yeah,
They look
they're
so
great.
much like Charles Melton in this movie that it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I don't really know how they did it. I think all I've mentioned was like it was the hair. Like
Mm,
it's just like the hair batches. Um, it's pretty shocking on a rewatch. Like one, how funny this movie is. Like how deliberately like comical it's made to be. Like you're meant to laugh at the absurdity of it. I think there was an interview where it's like either it was the writer or even it was Todd Haynes where he's like, if there's a moment when you think you're supposed to laugh, that means you're supposed to laugh. Like if you're uncomfortable
oh,
and you're like, what? That means you're supposed to laugh at the movie. Um, I don't know. It's like what did you like? What was your takeaway from all of this? Like, what'd you get like in terms of how this is like on Netflix and how this is like a crazy movie in a crazy movie year? What was your big
I
like
just
takeaways from
another
it?
example of like I know there's a lot of debate on like Netflix's role in the publication of movies,
Yeah,
but if they're letting these filmmakers make these uncompromised works of art,
yeah,
like I'm kind of okay with it, you know?
yeah. Me
Especially
too.
when the movie theaters are like, Who wants to see Wonka? Like,
Go see Wonka.
you know, the obviously the physical media aspect is troubling because again, Netflix is probably not going to collapse anytime soon. But if it does, the movies are potentially lost. I'm sure people have like illegally downloaded it,
Yeah.
streamed it, whatever. But like there wouldn't be any like hard copy redistribution of it, as far as we're aware. But at the same time, it's like May December, like yeah, both these movies talk about like would probably be better in a movie theater, but at the same time, if it went through a traditional like movie company, like would they've had to compromise on what they wanted to do, and like what have we got? What is it worth? Is it worth seeing a lesser product just to see it on the silver screen, or would you rather see it at home, but just see like what the filmmaker wanted you to see? You know,
Yeah.
not saying that necessarily. Because I'm Poor Things is coming out, and that's gonna be a movie that's in movie theaters, and I'm gonna bet that
Yeah.
judging by the trailers, there's not a lot of compromise going on there on
Yorgos is
Yorgos's part.
allowed to just they let that man run free.
Yes, but for a lesser filmmaker, there probably are compromises. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't think this movie is going to make a profound statement, well, on like the distribution of films, but I just see it as like a really great character study that I will probably be rewatching sometime soon.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, this is a fucking great year for movies. I know you haven't followed too much on like new releases this year. I've seen a lot.
I'm starting to warm up to this year after
Yeah,
like these two movies. Yeah.
it's like it's a great year. Like the fact that we can kind of like casually wrap up this year with like Leave the World Behind in May, December
And we're
among
gonna have Poor Things and Ironclaw next. Like these are
yeah.
two potential like 10 out of 10 movies.
When you say Aquaman too.
Well, Aquaman's a 11 out of 10.
Yeah, it's already built in. Yeah, we already have to
Yeah.
assume it's there.
I said potentially 10 out of 10s for those two.
Yeah.
Definitive 11 out of
Yeah.
10. People
Yeah.
up Atlanta.
And then just billions of people are dying. I mean, that's still
Yeah.
like the greatest movie. No, I just, was a little alarmed when you're like, great year for movies, Iron Claw, Poor Things, and you ended. There was another movie coming out on
I was
Christmas.
testing you to make sure you stood up for Aquaman too.
Yeah. I just, Patrick Wilson in the buddy comedy. Yeah. I don't know.
You're seeing that, like, we're probably gonna see it like in like that big movie theater, right? Like
Big
we're gonna
movie theater.
see it like, well, I don't want to
like
say where, but
we're gonna see it in an IMAX theater, right?
IMAX, yeah.
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 Yeah. You kidding me? I would kill myself if I had to see it at fucking a smaller theater. Aquaman deserves the biggest screen.
What am I, a pleb?
Yeah, what am I, an idiot? May who? There's
Yeah.
no Mantis punching a Patrick
Yeah.
Wilson in May December. Only boring people conversing over their
I
trauma.
know. Why would I want commentary on life when I can have billions of alien fish murdering each other in mass
I can't wait for Aquaman 2.
symphony of destruction and death?
Matt, do you have any other final points on either of the movie?
I'm just glad these two movies exist and I was able to watch them.
Yeah, me too. I like
Amazon hasn't had any good 2023 movies. I feel like Netflix has been carrying a load of like,
what has Amazon this year? Like Amazon Original?
yeah, I can't think of anything.
What have they had this year? That's actually really
They had a Eddie Murphy Christmas comedy come out.
I saw that like the Christmas Cane Lane, and I was
which
like,
I will not be watching.
Did you see real quick? If we're talking about 2023 movies, Apple has a new release with Mark Wahlberg called The Family Plan.
Oh, I've seen that on Letterboxd.
Seen that one? Yeah,
it looks like cinema.
I'm gonna probably watch that.
Why am I not surprised?
I am going to be alone on Tuesday with nothing to do. I will have watched probably like 5 movies by the time the day.
What do you mean you could do like anything?
I can't do anything. I have to watch these movies, Matt. How do you think Film Frauds is gonna raise in the echelons? Somebody has to watch The Family Plan, and
no one has to watch The Family Plan. We're not doing
episode
episode on The Family Plan. There's no reason why.
Someone has to watch The Family Plan. We have to.
Okay, Tyler. Keep telling yourself you're being productive.
Someone has to do it. Someone has to watch Naiad.
I like how Tyler gaslights himself into. He's like, yeah, I spent 6 hours today watching movies. I won't remember by tomorrow, but like, it's for a good cause.
I'm like Tom Cruise in Dead Reckoning. I'm basically Jesus sacrificing myself to watch these bad movies for everybody.
Whatever you say.
I did rewatch the Mission Impossible movie though. I think it's really fucking good. It's really good. It's really, really
I watched
good.
Killer, and it's much better on the rewatch.
Yeah, look at that. I'm gonna edit that to be at the beginning. of this episode, just so people know. Okay, the Patriots are doing really well, so we're gonna go watch those now.
Yes.
At least I hope. I have not checked in an hour.
They're
So,
down by 2 touchdowns now.
are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 24-10.
Uh,
Oh damn. Okay. Well, Bailey Zappi, 18 to 22, 150 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Damn.
rip.
Okay. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next week with, I imagine, Poor Things in Iron Claw. We will figure that out.
Maybe in person.
Maybe in person. We will also
Maybe.
figure that out. Maybe. I have to bring my microphone home.
Yeah,
Matt,
maybe
this was
not.
fun. Where can you find us?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Just leave us likes and ratings and VAP.
Yeah, leave a review.
Yeah, fuel our ego.
We'll read your review.
Yeah, fuel our ego.
live.
Yeah, and then we'll shit on you for not saying nicer things.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, thank you guys for watching. This has been fun, and we'll see you in the next 2023 wrap episode. Have a nice day, and fuck you. Goodbye.